This is Keys to the Shop, episode 245, a conversation with the world's youngest Q grader, Frankie Volkema. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. If you would, please subscribe to this show wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you really love the content that you're listening to, take a moment to share that with a friend as well. And as a special favor, I'd love to ask if this show has really helped you out a lot and you love what we're doing here at Keys to the Shop. Trying to get to 200 reviews by the end of the year, kind of an ambitious goal, but if you would leave a rating or review over at iTunes, leave a 5-star rating for the show, that would be so amazing. Thank you so much. And I want to let you know that Keys to the Shop offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. If you're just starting your first coffee shop and you're wanting to avoid needless mistakes, get things started on the right foot, or you're already established as a business, but you want to take things to the next level, or you've got a project or some challenges that you would like some help with, Keys to the Shop can help you in all of those areas and more, whether that's just over the phone consultation or on-site consulting, training, and assessment of your operations. If working with Keys to the Shop consulting sounds interesting to you, just email me. We could set up a time to chat over the phone and see how I might be able to help you. The email is chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is an amazing specialty coffee equipment supplier, and since the beginning of their company, their mission has been not only to curate the best equipment from all over the world, but to match that equipment with the needs of their customers. So, obviously, equipment is such a huge purchase. It's a very stressful thing, and they're here to help you make the right selection and, again, give you the best to choose from. When you go to the website, prima-coffee.com, you'll find so many resources in the forms of articles and videos breaking down different pieces of equipment, comparing them one against the other, helping you make great decisions, helping you learn how to maintain it and use it, even teaching you different methods of making coffee and latte art. They do all of this because they're dedicated to your success in specialty coffee. That's why I love working with them, and I think you're going to love working with them also. So if you're in the market for commercial coffee equipment, then working with Prima Coffee is a must. Go visit them again over at prima-coffee.com/keys. Today's episode is also brought to you by the wonderful Pacific Barista Series, the line of plant-based performance beverages that are designed for baristas and bench tested by some of the world's best baristas. So no matter if you use the almond, soy, coconut, rice, oat, or hemp, you're going to find that this product truly does perform on the bar. It stands up to the heat from steaming, produces an amazing silky texture that's great for latte art, and the beverage, the final beverage, is focused on the coffee. The taste is balanced, and all of these things make it something your customers absolutely will love. Baristas love it, and I think you need to get this in your store and try it for yourself. Go to their website, pacificfoodservice.com, explore the options, and get it in your store. This truly is an amazing performance beverage and something you need on your menu if you want to offer your customers the best in plant-based beverages. So again, that website for the Barista Series, pacificfoodservice.com. Okay, everyone. Well, today I'm so excited to present to you this conversation with Frankie Volkema, who just a year ago became the world's youngest Q grader at just 13 years old. Frankie this year has launched Joven Coffee, which has started to support the future of the coffee industry by providing financial stability to young farmers in at-risk regions around the world. It's really an amazing company and a great cause. They partner with young farmers and organizations of young farmers around the world to buy their coffee, promote their coffee, and we'll learn a little bit more about this in the conversation, but the problem of succession and the problem of passing on the coffee to the next generation is a very real one. And Joven Coffee is designed to address this in a very real way. We're also being joined by Frankie's father, Tim Volkema. Tim is the owner and CEO of Schuil Coffee, which is Michigan's first specialty coffee roaster. Schuil Coffee has distribution in hundreds of grocery stores, cafes, and offices throughout Michigan and the Midwest. And Schuil Coffee also owns and operates the boutique Sparrow's Coffee brand. And Tim also recently earned his own Q grader certification. In this conversation with Frankie and Tim, we're going to be discussing how Frankie became the world's youngest Q grader, the road that led her to coffee in the first place, and how she decided to start Joven Coffee. Joven is the Spanish word for young, and how it's been launching this in the midst of COVID. Tim discusses some of the operational aspects of how Joven Coffee works with the Schuil Coffee brand. And overall, I really love this conversation because I feel like this should and will inspire a lot of people to do similar things and focus on purchasing coffee from young growers around the world who really need the support. And I love that Frankie is spearheading this project and acting as a catalyst for what will likely be many, many more. So without further ado from me, let's get right to our conversation with the world's youngest Q grader, Frankie Volkema. Well, Tim, Frankie, so glad to have you on the show. Welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This is such an interesting story, and congratulations to you, Frankie, by the way, for your great accomplishment, youngest Q grader in the world. How does that feel?
It feels really good to know that I was able to do something special and also that I can use it to help other people too.
Tim, you must be super proud also.
I am. It's been neat to be able to work on something. It's not always the easiest thing to connect with your teenage daughter, and so it's been a cool process for us.
Yeah, not many coffee parents can say this. So really congrats to you both. And so I guess we can start out the conversation just by getting a little of a backstory here. In order to accomplish something like this, obviously you would have had to been in the business or at least, familiar with coffee to the point where you'd want to do something like the Q grader at that age. At what point did you start participating in the family business, in the roastery and the cafes? How did that all kind of evolve for you?
When I was about 12 years old, I started doing cuppings here at the shop because I was hanging out here a lot, and I was invited to just try a cupping because there was one going on while I was here. And then after realizing that I enjoyed doing that, I kept doing cuppings, and then we heard about the Q grading thing through a Q grader that we knew that was doing cuppings with us.
Okay. So I was thinking at first, you must have just like at 6 years old, just been on the floor helping, like just tasting different things. And it took you that, but it's not very long at all. That's only about 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years since I've been even involved in anything coffee related. But I might have been able to start earlier, but I just didn't have the opportunity to work in coffee until like 2 years ago. So,
were you just into tasting things in general before that? Were you just like picking out the nuances of oranges before that?
My parents always did a really good job of like making us try new foods and like eat good food too. So like maybe that helped too, so that I was able to pick out more complex flavors.
Okay, that makes sense. Tim, did you see this as she was cupping at 12? You must have at some point noticed that there is something different about this particular 12-year-old at a cupping table than maybe most. Like, what stood out to you that made you take notice?
Well, I guess one, that she was up for doing it. It was honestly, she was just kind of hanging around because it was a form of babysitting, and so it was like, hey, do you want to do this with us? We're gonna taste some coffees that came in. And so we were in the middle of a cupping, and she was just tasting alongside of us, and she was making really great observations. And I wasn't a Q grader at the time, but we had hired one to join us just to help us set up our QC process. And he was like, she's really good. And so it was basically the first time that she joined us that she was able to pick out some things. And I think for somebody that young, we were surprised at her ability to articulate what she was tasting.
Okay. So you had been running a coffee bar for how long at this point?
Well, I got into the business a little bit of an odd way. So about 3.5 years ago, I purchased Schuil Coffee. So I had a different background in marketing and finance. And I loved coffee as a consumer, but I had never been in the industry. And Schuil is a long time specialty roaster out of Michigan, founded in 1981, and started, by the Schuil family and run by the Schuil family. And so they just did not have an internal family succession plan. So that's where I came in and took the business over. So I kind of came in a side door. I didn't come up through the cafe culture.
Well, that's interesting. It seems to run in the family that you enter into the coffee industry, doing some pretty cool things right off the bat, and you coming in with no coffee background, and Frankie just becoming a Q grader in 2 years after first drinking coffee seems pretty awesome. When you figured out that there's this talent for tasting coffee, I imagine that the exam was something that was brought up right when the Q grader was, saying, well, she's pretty good. Was that something you considered right away?
I think that I always thought I would just continue doing cuppings and tastings at Schuil and helping out with that sort of thing. But I didn't think I actually considered the exam until later. I think I was just walking my dog with my dad or something like that. And he was like, would you be interested at all in actually trying to take the Q course if you're old enough? And I said, yeah, that'd be really fun. I would love that. And so we looked into it a little more, and then we were like, let's do it. Let's do the Q grader exam.
just let's do it. It should be fun. I think a lot of people out there who have just sweated great drops of blood about the Q grader exam, and even whether they should do it or not, might be really scratching their head because it's such a intensive test. I mean, how did you prepare for something like that? Because, I know you're in the cupping room all that time, but I mean, did it take you a long time to get to a point where you felt comfortable enough in your studies you thought you were going to ace it?
Yeah, I would say, well, the cuppings here helped a lot, and I continued to do more and more after I decided to do the exam so that I could keep practicing. And I also practiced some of the smells in one of the tests. You have this box of aromas, the Lene du Cafe aromas, and so we practiced those a lot because we heard that was something that was difficult on the test. And we practiced basically that in cuppings, and also this other test with solutions where it's a mix of salt and sugar and citric acid, and then you have to say how much, what the ratio is. And so we practiced those 3 things because we heard that those were the hardest things on the tests. And I would say that up until the course, I don't know if I felt 100% confident in my skills. I definitely thought that I had a lot of practice and I really enjoyed learning more about coffee. And so I was just kind of going in with the mindset that I wanted to learn as much about coffee as possible. And if I didn't pass, it wasn't the end of the world. But obviously the training that I did do paid off in the end. So
yeah. So not the end of the world if you don't pass, but since you did and basically aced it. And so that opened up another world for you in terms of, the coffee world. And you're already, I imagine, deciding that you wanted to kind of stick in coffee a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, I definitely knew that I wanted to do something with my Q grader certification, whether that was just continuing to help out at Schuil or doing something more. And I'm so glad that we got to do something with the opportunity that was actually helping people and addressing kind of a bigger issue of the young farmers issue.
Yes, exactly. So this all building up to the point of starting Joven Coffee, focusing on young farmers, which is such a brilliant concept and such a needed thing, especially when you talk about acquiring the company that you did with no internal succession planning, Tim. This is parallel to the farm's problem of, passing on the farm to the next generation and this legacy issue. So, Frankie, how did you decide to kind of parlay your experiences with, getting into the industry, passing the Q, to setting up this company to help young farmers?
Well, we heard a lot about the young farmers issue at the Q course, and that is why we decided to take a trip to Colombia, just to go down there and meet with some young farmers and talk with some of the youth programs they have there that work with young farmers to create higher quality coffee. So we went down there, and we already had in mind the idea that we would want to do something with young farmers, and that's why we went down there. And then when we were there, it was really cool to talk to some of these young farmers and hear from these organizations what the issue was and what kind of the things that we could do as roasters and as buyers of their coffee. And so then from there, we decided to continue to just buy coffee from young farmers and sell it as a specific brand for only young farmers, so that we could kind of raise awareness of this issue, as well as support young farmers with, higher prices for their higher quality coffee.
Yeah, so you had already intended to sort of go down there and figure out what a solution could be for your operation to support young farmers. Like, how big of a problem is this in the coffee industry, where young people are really needing the support from us in the traditionally consuming world?
Well, it's a large problem, because if the average age of coffee farmers is over 50 years old, then that means that a lot of these coffee farmers are nearing retirement age, and when they retire and their kids don't want to take over the coffee farm, or other young people don't want to, then, we don't have anybody to run that farm anymore. And so basically just what Hoven does is to make sure that we are supporting these young farmers and making the coffee industry more attractive for them by paying higher prices for high quality coffee, which I think I said earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So and that, I imagine this fits right in with the business as it is right now. And I wonder, how have customers reacted to this program, to this business, and its integration into Schuil Coffee and the cafes, the Sparrow cafes?
A lot of people are, especially locally, are really excited about supporting a local business that also is cost-based. And a lot of people are really excited about learning more about it, because they had never known anything about this problem at all. And usually what they hear is, climate change, and that's the biggest problem in the coffee industry, which is a big problem, obviously. But also we're excited to hear something new and know that somebody was kind of helping to take care of that. And then also a lot of people in the coffee industry have been very excited about it too, because a lot of people already knew about this problem in the coffee industry and are just excited that we are kind of, taking the next step forward to helping that.
That's great. And so I guess another question for me is, you mentioned reaching out to people that have organizations on the ground in these coffee farming areas that you can partner with. So you're forming a business that collaborates with people who are forming organizations on the ground in the farming areas. How do you go about finding those organizations? And it seems like this is something that's becoming a little bit more popular, I guess. I wouldn't say popular. I guess this is something becoming a little bit more regular, to have cooperatives formed around these particular issues, such as incentivizing young producers.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have worked with multiple programs at our Q course. Our instructor is one of the main people that works with Coffee for Peace in Colombia. And so we found some of our partnerships in Colombia through them. And then our partnership in Burundi, we found through the person we usually buy green coffee from Burundi. And I mean, my dad could say more about that because he knows them better.
Yeah, we used our existing relationships, and we said we're trying to create awareness, about the sustainability issue that's important to the future of the industry. And do you have programs that support this? And a lot of importers either know of or do have, relationships with co-ops that are running these types of programs. And so the example in Burundi, we were already buying coffee from this particular importer that works with lots of farms in Burundi, but she had one in mind where several young women came together to purchase a wet mill, and she's like, this is going to be a perfect fit. And so we were excited about it.
That's great. Is that Janine at JNP?
Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly.
Love Janine. Yeah. Great work there. So, finding just by word of mouth these organizations to partner with seems like the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. It's great when you know people and when you can make new connections to have these resources for later, and just so that you can, and we're always looking to meet new young farmers and other organizations that work with young farmers too. And hopefully the connections we have now can help us make those other connections later.
Nice. And so this is all kind of started saddled in COVID time. This is an interesting time to have Joven Coffee coming to fruition. So I wonder how this has affected the progress of the business itself, and what you all have done in spite of that to continue building this business.
Originally, we were going to launch Hoven in March of 2020, but then that was the month that disaster hit and all the lockdown and everything. And we were going to launch in New York, actually, and then so that would not have worked out. So we pushed the launch back, and we just kind of thought, we don't know when we're going to be able to launch this. So we didn't have like a set date at that point. And so we did have all the coffee here, and we had the bags for the coffee too, and everything that we needed to launch, because we were going to launch in that month. So there weren't any complications with like ordering things or getting coffee beans during the COVID time, because we already had everything. It was just a matter of waiting until the right time. And as we kept pushing it back month after month, because nothing was seeming to change, we decided to just launch it in the summer, even though it might not be the most ideal time, because we're still in the COVID. Everybody's still in quarantine, or they're just coming out of quarantine. We just decided to launch it because we thought we should better launch it now. It's better to launch it now than in like a year or two.
We sort of decided that the optimal time for launch might never come, but this issue is still, this is still an issue. So we felt like we wanted to start building awareness around it. And I think the main thing that COVID did is change our approach a little bit, where we're focused on sort of directing people to our website and purchasing it online for their homes, versus we really had more of a cafe approach before, where we would love for cafes to feature this. And it's a nice story, I think, for cafes to tell. I think that's a good venue for this type of issue to be highlighted. But we were also sensitive to the fact that this is a difficult time for cafes. So we just shifted our focus a little bit during this time.
A lot of e-commerce and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It seems like maybe e-commerce could be even more profitable to the cause at this point, especially than the traditional route.
Yeah, I definitely think so, because you can also reach more people that way too, because everybody's always on the internet. So.
Yeah, with subscriptions and the like, you're right. Everyone's on the internet, and the word of mouth is just viral, if you will. I mean, for companies like this, especially that are cause-based. And so it brings up an interesting question, which is when you're taking on a project like this, the idea of scalability comes up, which is how much do you need to purchase, and what kind of growth do you want to see in order for this to make a substantial impact on the lives of the people you're partnering with?
I think that it's very scalable in the sense that if people are interested in it and people keep buying it, then, I mean, at least for me, any sort of recognition is great, because as long as you can start to get the word out there about this issue and about how you can tackle it is a great start. And then people can build on that always. And if we get super big, that's also great, because then we've been able to, spread our wings and spread the message and start to, fix this problem. And so any level of recognition is great as long as we can try to address this issue.
Frankie and I decided from the beginning too that we were going to make a commitment to both. We're working with 2 groups of farmers right now, and so we just decided we're going to buy a lot from both of them, and we're lucky in that we've got other parts of our business. So if for some reason we couldn't launch Hoven, which was the case for a little while, or it just didn't sort of gain any traction with customers, we had other ways to use that coffee. And so we decided to make a pretty sizable commitment from the beginning. But as Frankie said, the more we can grow, the more farmers we can get involved, and the more we can buy from the existing partners we have.
Here's 2 questions for you. Well, I guess I'll just start with one. But going on what you just said, Tim, the operations of your business sort of supporting Hoven, like you just said, there's places for the coffee to go within your operations. If it doesn't go specifically under the brand of Hoven, you could probably use it in a blend, or you've committed to buying this and you've got places to put it. So what, practically speaking, did you have to do in the business on the back end to really make this something that the people you're partnering with can depend on? Because it's not really a light decision to make.
Yeah, that I mean, I think you said it well, which is the people we work with to some extent are depending on our ability to come back year after year. It's difficult to buy half of someone's crop, for instance, and then just bail the following year, unless the quality's not there, unless you have a good reason. And so I think we're in a fortunate position because we felt, although it's a big commitment, we were comfortable making that commitment because we knew that it wouldn't just sit in a warehouse. We knew that there were channels that we had that we could use the coffee and use it really well.
What type of long-term commitments are we talking about when it comes to committing to, like you mentioned, like it's a year after year thing maybe with certain groups? Are there multiple year contracts, or is that just too risky to sign on for?
It's just not really something that I've seen a lot of, these multiple year contracts. But I think there's a tacit understanding with the groups you're working with that, if you're buying a significant amount of coffee and it's a good transaction on their side, it's a good transaction on your side, that there's an expectation that if the quality is static or maintained or improved, that you'll keep coming back. And that's just a great form of sustainability in itself, sort of this trade, not aid relationship. And so there's no reason we wouldn't want to keep doing it.
Okay, so trade, not aid, that is in contrast to just buying it because it's a good cause. You want it to be mutually beneficial, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I imagine when you're cupping the coffees and the samples that you get from these groups, you're giving them feedback. I mean, coming in with this, now you're both Q graders. How does the feedback work so that you can help them improve their quality?
We'll grade the coffee in like a cupping, and we will sample multiple cups of their coffee to make sure there are no like inconsistencies. And then we will tell them if it's inconsistent from last harvest. We can say, oh, this is inconsistent from last harvest. Like this seems to have a little more of this, or like it's a little, we noticed like it was less fruity and more acidity this time, or more like astringent or something like that. And then they can think maybe that's because of a certain way that I'm drying my beans, or like maybe that's a certain, or they, since they're coffee farmers, then maybe they can try to find out why that is. And then that feedback can help them improve the way that they're farming the coffee.
And we're just one layer in the feedback process.
Right.
So they work with co-ops locally that also have Q graders that give them feedback. Like our group in Colombia is with Cafe Norte. They have an incredible team that helps the farmers improve their coffee. And so we're sort of the end of the chain. And so by the time it gets to us, it's typically going to have been vetted. But I think they really do also value the feedback from us as roasters.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you look for in terms of, and I don't know if you've reached this point, it's early in the game, but what does a decision look like, or hypothetically, that you would say, well, we can't buy this coffee?
I think that we would not buy it if there was like a defect in the coffee. I mean, that's the main reason why, or if it's just way lower quality than last time we tried it. Yeah, or if it's scoring 80, like lower than 84 in score, because that's the criteria for Hoven, is that it has to be scoring 84 or higher. And that's just what we chose because we wanted to say, this is our our criteria for how high of quality it needs to be, so that we can make sure that we're paying high prices for it. So yeah, that's for us at least. We wouldn't buy it if there was a defect in it, but mainly if it was scoring lower than 84, because a defect would automatically bring that down anyway.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And that's anything lower than an 84, but even at an 84, you're still opening up the possibilities to a lot of producers. Where in specialty coffee, there's a lot of, people will really try to shoot for only 90 plus coffees, and it limits the amount of coffee that you can buy from other people who have, frankly, delicious coffees that don't technically score above a certain point system. And so this seems a lot more welcoming to coffee farmers and gives them a possibility to also improve.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess a question for you now is, this is just getting off the ground and launching, is what have you learned through this process? What is the biggest lesson that you've learned through becoming a Q grader and launching Joven Coffee? What have you taken away from this so far?
One of the biggest things that I have learned is that, if you work hard at something, or if you really have a passion for something, you can make it. Like, you might not have as many resources as I was lucky enough to have, but I think that I see all these wonderful people that are interested in coffee and that work in coffee, and they start with nothing, and they do great things because they're so passionate about it, and they just have such a heart for helping other people, and just for wanting to share their love of coffee with the rest of the world. And I think that I've learned that, and also just a lot more about coffee culture and a lot of the cultures that surround coffee. And on my trip to Colombia, just kind of seeing a whole new way of living. And so I thought that was really cool.
What are your plans for the future in terms of, Hoven, and maybe even in your career in coffee? What are you looking forward to and you really, really hope happens maybe in the next year or so?
Well, I'm just really looking forward to more people hearing about Hoven and sharing the word about Hoven, and buying more Hoven and learning more about young farmers, because as long as we continue to spread awareness of this issue and grow Hoven, we can really make an impact in the coffee industry and encourage others to do the same.
It certainly seems that's what you're doing right now. So again, congratulations and really good job. Tim, Frankie, it's been really awesome to have you on the show. Tell us where we can go to learn more about Hoven and, buy some of it.
You can go to hovencoffee.com, which is JOVENCOFFEE.com.
Awesome. One-stop shop. Well, thank you both again. It was wonderful to have you on the show.
It was great. Yeah. Thanks for having us. And I would say, if any of your listeners want to email us directly with any other specific questions, they can email me at tim@schuilcoffee.com.
Excellent. And we'll make sure we put these in the show notes. Again, thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, well, I really hope that you enjoyed that episode and that it inspired you. If you're a roaster or cafe and you are wanting to do something similar to this, it is accessible to you. We live in a world that's just getting more and more connected. And just like they're doing at Joven Coffee, Partnering up with organizations that are already focused on this is something that is accessible to you as well. And I would encourage you, if you're a roaster, to look into this and what you can do to make a difference with your business. And also, if you're a young professional listening to this show, I hope that Frankie's story inspires you to get out there and do big things. That age doesn't necessarily have to inhibit you, but you can go out there and make a difference just like Frankie is doing. And so a big thank you to Frankie and Tim for joining us on the show and really inspiring us today. You can find out more information by visiting the website hovencoffee.com. That's Joven coffee.com. You can also follow Frankie on Instagram over at KidQGrader. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's episode or any other episode or life in general, you can send those to me over at chris@keystotheshop.com. Always love hearing from you all. Thank you so much again for taking the time to listen today. I hope you have an awesome day. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.